Hello, this is Daryl of 10 Foot Truck Good Attitude Services. Hope everyone's doing great out there today. The weather's nice. Good day to do work. I've just kind of cleaned up the truck. I did a removal yesterday, mattress removal and frame. And those are great because they're pretty fast. I like those. I can do those all day long. Looking into getting it stored so that I can, if I do a removal like that, I can drop it off and then get another one and then kind of bring them all together. Because the dump fees were, could have been better if I had conglomerated or put together another removal. So, because I noticed the dump fees are going up. I don't know about your area, but the dump fees here are going up a little bit. I can't tell you how much. I think because I dropped off I didn't have any other removals to do, so I couldn't compile like I usually do. I'll just compile 2 or 3 together, so it makes more. You'll get a better price because this removal, it was just the frame, the bed, and it was about 200 pounds total, I think. And they still charge me the minimum fee, but the minimum fee now is almost $20. It used to be like, I thought when I first started going there, it was like 16 something, a little bit over $16, almost 17. So it appears it's gone up several dollars. So that means I have to probably not do the one. I was doing a one item curbside for 50, and that's not going to work anymore because I'm gonna have to keep that at $80 because of the fees. So depending on the size, like if it's something like a chair, like a small chair or a small recliner, I could possibly do a curbside 50 on that one because then I can compile it. I'll have room to store it while I'm compiling the others. If it's a full size, like king size mattress, which in this truck, if it's with the whole thing, it fills up a lot of the truck. So I could probably do another removal on top of that, but it makes it harder depending on if it's furniture or not. So sometimes I'd have to drop that off. Like I had to go and drop that off because I have a moving job coming up tomorrow, and I need everything out, and I don't have any room. I don't have a storage right now to store all that stuff. So I had to get that out of the truck, clean it up for moving tomorrow. I'll be doing some repeat customer. So I keep the price the same with repeats unless things are getting really drastically expensive, and things are getting, like gas is going up, so we know the prices are going to have to start to go up a little bit. Unfortunately, in this case, I'm just going to leave the price the same because if I have a repeat customer that's they call me on a regular basis, then I give them a better deal because they're a regular customer. So gas has gone up. So and now the dump fees are going up. So got to calculate all that in there, make sure you're getting the right price. And as far as like moving, this is moving season, so I get a lot of moving labor jobs, loading trucks. There's another one coming up after this one tomorrow. I could do another one at the end of the week, and then I'm doing an assembly job. I'm gonna start doing those because there's a lot of that being posted as far as assembly like furniture that comes in ships in a box. So I'll be doing those on off time, but that's a good little side gig I do. I've been doing that for years, so I like that little side gig. You don't get paid that much compared to like junk removal or moving. Now moving labor, this is something I wanted to talk about because I've been up until like probably a year ago, maybe not, a little more than a year ago, but I started to think about integrating junk removal into my services because I've mainly been doing, I think I talked about this before, mainly been doing furniture delivery for stores and then for buyouts, Craigslist, and then doing moving labor. For a long time I've been doing moving labor all the way back to, I was using eMove, which I don't know if they exist anymore, but I was using them to get marketed because they marketed for, I think they used to market through U-Haul or something like that. So I would get a lot of moving labor jobs, and that worked really well. And that was a long time ago. I started doing that back in 2004. I did that up until about 2007 in the Seattle area. Then I moved out of Seattle. The market was really good there, especially with military moves. It was really good because they have three military bases there. They have Fort Lewis, McChord. They have the submarine base, and they have a Navy base, and they have so there's a lot of that. I used to get a lot of those jobs going over across the water, and there was quite a bit of work there. So when I moved out of there, I started doing moving labor down in the Portland area. I was down in Vancouver, and that was pretty busy up until they had that home crisis around 2008, and I started to slow down a bit. So I started doing other work, and then I picked up again and did moving labor, and because I had repeat customers calling me, and I was going back and forth between Seattle and Portland. Now I don't live in those areas, but there was quite a bit of market for that. And all the way back to, I can't remember what it was, the rates were in 2007. And I'm not talking about bringing a truck, I'm talking about loading like pods, unloading pods, ABF trailers, U-Hauls. You're not providing the actual vehicle. That's household goods moving. That's very regulated. They can't regulate, or they did regulate for a bit down in Oregon, but then they had to change that policy because labor is just labor, and that's it. It's not, you're not having to be regulated with DOT and all that. So anyway, the rates, I don't remember what the rates were in 2004. I can't remember, but I do remember in 2007 it was $35 an hour per man with a 3-hour minimum on each job. And some people went a little more than that, some people went a little less. I stayed around 30 an hour at that time. And so that's like 16 years ago. That kind of stuff, that labor, moving labor, it really hasn't, the rates really haven't changed along with inflation. So people still expect, like I had a call today, and it was going to be moving labor, and I gave them a price because I was going to bring out all the equipment in the truck, and it was just going to be moving between certain areas, but they weren't really happy with the rate. And I thought, well, back in 2007, no one would have complained about that. And that's when, if you think about it, 2007, that's when minimum wage was, at least in my state, was about seven something an hour. I mean, it was like almost $8. I think it turned to $8 an hour in 2008. So if you think about 35, if you're doing moving labor, it's great because it's $35 an hour, and I was getting jobs all summer. Those, that's a huge increase in your income doing moving labor, even though it's hard labor, but you're getting paid well. Well, now minimum wage in the state that I live in Washington State, is $15.74. So if you think about the increase, it's almost double what it was back then, the minimum wage. But if you look at moving labor jobs, not the truck, just the labor, they're still around 35, sometimes even less, like out here, because of course over there it's a little more expensive. I think it may be 40 over there. I looked at it, like 40 an hour. Here they're doing like 20 and 25. So that's like $10 less than what I was getting back in 2007. So my point is that, kind of, when I started watching these videos on junk removal itself and the different companies, and I didn't really look into it, and how they were doing, instead of hourly, they were doing per load. That is maximizing your it increases the amount of money you're going to make if you're going to calculate it per hour by a huge amount. Because you can go do a full load for $400 or $500, and it could take you maybe an hour to, even by yourself, maybe an hour to load. Of course you got to go to the dump and you got to pay the dump fees, and so that's like $100 or whatever. So it drops it down to $400. But even then, and then it may take another hour. Maybe you're going to sort it, so maybe it's 2 hours. But still, compared to moving, even if you have a moving truck and you have a household goods license, which is very expensive and it's hard to get, except in my state it is. It's a very highly regulated service, and I've talked to the DOT about it. But my truck, I'm just using it for commercial delivery. It's under 10,000 pounds gross weight, which keeps it outside of the DOT and it's just a permit for delivery. I don't have to do the household goods permits. If I do moving, it's only moving labor, and that's not regulated. But I think they were charging like, I don't know, I have to look, for like $125 an hour for a crew, like 2 guys in the truck, like say a 16 or 20 foot truck or a 26 foot truck. A friend of mine does moving, and he has a 30-foot truck, and I think he told me he was charging $125 an hour, and I'm not sure, don't quote me on that. It could be a little less, could be a little more. It's a little bit over $100 an hour for 2 guys in the truck. So that hourly, it's not going to be as lucrative. And now I know junk removal is extremely competitive, and during the summer months you're going to get a lot of moving. If you're doing moving, you're going to get a lot more moving, I think, during those months. So it's good to kind of combine if you're doing that, where I combine moving labor. But when you think about the amount I'm going to make, like I went into the mattress removal, it's real quick. It's heavy. It's not easy to lift something like that. But it's a quick job. It doesn't take hours. It maybe takes a half an hour to an hour to do the full thing. If you have to drive far. I live close to the dump, so it could take 45 minutes, maybe half an hour. But if you're doing moving labor, like without the truck, and you're doing $35 an hour, and it's a 3-hour minimum, you may make $105. So, but you're working those hours, unless you get lucky where the job is, it only takes an hour and they give you the minimum. But usually when they hire you for 3 hours, or they say you have a 3-hour minimum, most moving jobs are going to take that time or more if you're going to load a full truck. So like tomorrow's job will probably take me 2 hours. so it's a harder way. It's more physical demanding job to me than, I know they're both physically demanding, but for the amount of money you're getting paid doing the moving labor, to me it's more physically labor intensive, because you're getting paid per hour. You're not getting paid per load. It's not by volume. You can maximize the amount you make in the volume. In the case of volume, because to load a truck, say, takes an hour. A full truck like my truck, it takes maybe not even an hour. I mean, depending on what you're loading. And it can take a lot less than that. But you're moving, you have to be extremely careful with the items. You have to wrap the items. You have to make sure they're not going to move and shift. You have to make sure the load is going to be properly distributed, so the truck doesn't drives. You have to have you don't want things too heavy on the wheelbases, and the amount of weight you want. Most of them you want up in the front. You want the heavy items on the bottom. You don't want to stack heavy items on top. You got to do all this type of what I call Tetris to get things, because you want everything packed in so good that it's not going to shift and nothing's going to get damaged, and you want it all wrapped. And that takes a lot more thought. As you're doing it, it's a little bit more time consuming to get it done correctly. So if it's driving cross country, long distance, it's not going to get damaged, because there's a lot of chuck holes and things like that. Whereas junk, you're not worried about if it breaks, because it's all going to the trash. So most of it, sometimes a donation, but so maybe in that case you might want to take care of that. But if it's just going to the dump, it's just chuck it in there. But you do want to maximize your space to get it all in there. But load time is going to be less. Load time with when you're doing moving, being careful and having to wrap things and having to tie things down and all that. And then coming in and out of the house, you got to be careful, much more careful when you're moving the things. It's going to take longer. It's just common sense. So that's what I'm saying. It's a good job. It's a good opportunity. So I keep doing the moving labor. But when I see a junk job, that's like, wow, okay, I'm going to make some money on that one. I mean, not that I don't make money on the other stuff. It's much more lucrative. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know what you think out there. If you guys do moving or if you do junk, what you think about that? Because that's what I think about it. And that's what my experience is as I've done that. I haven't done a lot of moving. I mean, a lot of junk removal. I've only been doing about 6 months. I did off and on. I did junk removal here and there, but as far as like trying to market it and trying to do more of those, that's been only about 6 months, because I didn't do any in the winter time. I don't work in the winters for the most part. Just a little bit, but most of it's in the summer, spring, fall. So maybe almost a year. But moving labor, and moving in general. I drove cross country with a Mayflower 40-foot trailer. I mean, no, yeah, it was a 40-foot moving van, 80,000 pounds. I drove that cross country. I did moved mansions, moved offices. I've moved custom bike shops. I've moved, just about every kind of situation. Furniture stores. I can't think all the way back, but a lot of weird types of equipment. I've moved cars with, we had to build racking systems to put cars and stuff on top. I've done every kind of, anything you get. I've pretty much moved pianos, grand pianos. I've moved gun safes. I've moved vending machines, you name it. So I've kind of experienced all that. And so I've done it for many, many years professionally with working for companies, furniture stores, and then independently. So I know kind of how it works. It was a little bit different back in the old days. You would have to, it was, especially when you're doing those long hauls, they also went by the weight and all that. And that's a little bit different in the charges back then. Things have changed. It's more just hourly, especially with the labor. So it's hourly. That's it. So I've learned that it's a good way to make money, and it's always going to be there, and people always hire movers. But it's not as lucrative in my mind as junk removal. And maybe that's why junk removal is much more attractive to people when they're starting out a business as opposed to a moving company, because I'm not sure, each state has a different regulations. Here, if you're doing contracting with construction, you have to have a contractor's license. If you're just doing, that's what I understand, if you're doing like furniture removal, that's different. So it depends on the state with the license you have and permits and the insurances. But moving with a truck, that's very expensive to get in. There's a lot of paperwork you have to go through, and to get that, at least there used to be, I've looked into it before, and it's just stacks of paperwork to get through that process of having your household goods license and permits. And then if you're going cross country, when I worked for a company, there was permits. It was hard, it was complicated, especially doing the logbooks and all that. But and the weights, if you have a certain weight truck, when you get into moving, you have a bigger truck than I have. This is a small truck. You have the bigger truck, you have to have a DOT weight restriction and all that. So, and the marketing is different. So I could see how people, when they jump into being a business person and they're looking at all these different type of labor services, they go junk removal. And then 1-800-JUNK, I think it's Junk King. These guys have done great jobs marketing and also franchising. Now with moving, the first franchise that I noticed, because I worked for starving students way back in the 80s. I worked for Mayflower Transit Driving, which they're an old company, and I worked for United Van Lines. I did that as a temporary job. And then Two Man Truck, I noticed them, they're a franchise, and they're pretty cool how what they did really, I think it's based on hourly. So they kind of got that franchise. There's a few other franchises, like I think College Hunks, that's another franchise. They do junk removal and moving. But the junk removal has a lot of franchising, I've noticed. And that's something I was thinking about. I know this video is going on for a long time. It's just thoughts I have. That's where all these other companies are starting to look alike. They're kind of like, I call them cookie cutter. They franchise kind of according to that, using the same kind of trucks, the same kind of logos, the cartoon kind of logos and that. And it's kind of solidifying that kind of business into this certain type of franchise look. So that's something that's been going on for a long time. So when people do jump into it, they kind of follow that franchise pattern or that's kind of how they model their business. I'm not doing that because I'm doing services. I don't call myself junk removal. I do multiple things. I don't just do junk removal. So I can't really market my business as a franchise kind of look. It's just an independent guy doing, more independent the way I do it. But I can understand that franchise. But now the new thing that's coming in, I've heard people talking about, is the gig apps, the subcontracting the companies that use the apps like computer apps on the phone, and they market online through the apps, so that you have this app you can locate. The independent contractor can sign up and then put the app on their phone, and then the jobs come through just like Uber Eats or DoorDash, that kind of independent contractor work. So the companies are starting to do that, and I'm starting to see that model may change the whole market. I mean, in my mind, because those guys know how to market. They're getting a nationwide. They're getting their ads up on Google, up there pretty high, everywhere, every city. So that could take over it could start changing how people, when they enter the business, if they're going to do it through subcontracting through one of those apps, or are they going to do it on their own? Are they going to mix it together? That's changing the game a little bit, because those guys can really market really well. I've seen them, I watch them, and I actually use those apps on occasion, because just to see, and it does help for me, because I don't really do Google. I don't do Google ads. I don't pay for any of that stuff. I'm just straight up just doing local Craigslist right now. I don't have the money to do all that stuff, so I'll use those apps because they're already doing the marketing, and sometimes you get a pretty fair payout on these jobs. So I'm seeing that kind of come in, and it hasn't really it's not taking the market completely at all, but it's really starting to change the way things are working, and all those apps and gig apps are changing the way people work, how they subcontract, and how they approach their business, and whether they're going to use an app. I noticed one guy on YouTube, I can't remember his name, he's developing an app. I thought that's brilliant too, because all these apps that are coming in, and then of course artificial intelligence, that's a whole other story. The whole thing that is coming in it's really coming in strong, and people are able to develop applications, websites, all that with AI. You don't have to know how to program anymore. That's going to change the game too. That's something to look into. I'm looking into that right now for merchandise, using these apps or these online like drop shipping, t-shirt companies, or they're not t-shirt companies, but they're like a platform where you can create merchandise and then have a drop ship. There's all kinds of weird things, things that weren't around that are just coming really fast, especially with the AI developing that stuff. So things are going to change. Just have to keep up with that. Of course, when things come in, when the cars start doing the self-driving thing, that's going to change things. The robotics, I looked into that. That's coming in pretty fast. That could be a tool for laborers that could help in the future, but it also may take certain jobs away. So gotta look at that too. Anyway, I've been rambling on long enough. Got a decent week this week coming up. And I've been watching a lot of videos on marketing, and I do plan on learning more about that, especially the Google ads. I don't know anything about that. I have a Google My Business, but that's it. I don't really. I've been posting up these ads that are just kind of short ads, and I've been getting a lot of response on that. But a lot of it's from other places. They're saying, "Hey, can you come out and do this?" But I'm in Illinois, and well, I'm not in Illinois, so people are getting into other parts of the country. So that's good that it's getting momentum, but it hasn't really started to pan out in my local area as far as the Google ads and YouTube. But it's always good to do. It's good practice to do ads. It's good practice to do videos, because me just talking in front of the camera, I used to be not very comfortable with that, but now I don't care. I just talk, and if people want to listen, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine with me too. It's just a good way to practice that, and because that is definitely good to be able to do for marketing and anything else like that. But so I think it's good to have a YouTube channel, regardless of if you got any followers or any subscribers. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's just a good practice to feel comfortable in front of a camera and to speak and to try to speak clearer. And I'm learning that over the time to look at my videos and see how it looks and all that, and kind of try to improve on that. But I think I've talked too long here. Good Attitude Services 10-foot truck. gonna call it a night tonight. I think I might do some more research on marketing. And if anyone has any good ideas on where to go, there's a lot of guys in junk removal that are doing. They're the best. That's one thing I like about junk removal. They really know how to. They're like a community. They have great videos and educational videos on marketing. I don't see a lot of that with moving or any of that or delivery. They just don't have that. It's mainly a few, but junk removal is great. They got so many good content creators and YouTube channels that I love going and checking those out. There's a lot of people doing really well with that. So more success to them, and power to anyone who's and success to anyone who's trying to make it on their own and trying to be an independent man in this world, or independent woman, or independent business person. It's a struggle, but it's worth it. It's worth it just going out there and trying to make your own thing, doing your own thing, whatever it is, whatever service or whatever. It's empowering. I think it's really cool, and I don't think I'd ever go back. I mean, I'm just working a regular job. I like just doing my own thing. So that being said, have a great week. Be very prosperous and enjoy your time out there. Good Attitude Services 10-foot truck signing out.